So Kel, don't be frightened of my baseball bat now, but we're going to have a conversation about prioritisation of work blend. Wow, it's a loaded topic, this one, for sure. Geez, so this is what you pretty much live day in, day out. You're the one keeping everything and all the moving parts together. So why don't you, let's start talking about prioritisation at Ben. Now, in particular, what we're talking about is prioritisation of work that comes into the agency and work that goes out of the agency and all the moving parts in between. So first off, what software are you making sure that we use, and are you using to make sure that we keep everything on the straight and narrow?
So our general thing that we absolutely cannot do without is Monday.com. We use Monday as our project management tool. So that is what we use internally as a team. So our project managers sort of use that to make sure that things are getting done on the date that they scheduled, by the date that they're due to go through. They are able to then track every single task that's going through the motions, which I'll talk a bit more about a little bit later. And then each of our clients have got their own Monday board where we have their list of priority tasks for the month ahead. And essentially we communicate on each of those tasks to explain to the client where the task is. So, you know, are we in a design process? Has this design been done? Is it ready for them to sign it off? Once it's signed off, can we then go into build for that task? So we could not do without our Monday boards.
So I'm sort of almost imagining this like a node system. It's like you've got a node for the internal project managers and account managers, and then sort of like everything disperses out to clients like off that node.
So that's how we sort of keep track of everything, but there are quite a few other bits and pieces that we use to ensure that everyone kind of knows what they are working on a particular day and how we manage our capacity.
Yeah.
So two of those additional tools are Float, and we use Float as a scheduling tool. So it sort of looks like kind of like a Google Calendar, where we can see all of our team members, so we can have a look at our design team, our strategy team, and our development team, and we can book in their tasks each day. Obviously tasks need to be scoped, so we give a scope time, but as I'm sure you know, oftentimes a team member could need a bit more time, and they would then need to request from our project managers a little bit more time on those tasks. The third thing that we use is EverHour. So that is a time tracking tool. And the reason for that, it potentially comes across as a bit of a micromanaging tool, and that's sort of not what we use it for at Blend at all. What we use time tracking for is to ensure that the scope time that we are giving to a particular task is actually how much time we're spending on that task. So if someone is spending way more time on a task, we need to go back to our scoping board and adjust the time for that task. Or if they're spending far less time, we would need to go and adjust that task so that it's more in line with the actual time spent on a task.
Got you. So how are you dealing with, you know, the moving parts of people, holidays, sick, you know, overruns on some tasks, maybe underruns on others, you know, how are you balancing that?
Sometimes I feel like Float is a full-time job. I thankfully have our lovely project managers who support on that front. But there are things that happen. People are sick. People have babies earlier than expected. People have holidays. It's just one of the things that we've got to try and manage. And as you sort of know and preach, is that you don't want to decline someone's annual leave. It doesn't leave a very nice taste in the mouth for that team member. So you kind of want to approve holidays where you can. I mean, there may be instances where this would never happen. The entire development team's on leave. Like, we just can't have no developers. We need to have hands on deck. So we need at least one person in a team that is available. I say one person, but it's potentially more than that. So we need to have people on hand for urgent tasks. Like if someone cannot check out on the client's website, you can't just let that run for a week. You need someone to be able to go in and fix it.
What about, in terms of cross-functional skills from team members and things like that?
Yeah, so that's something that I think we've done pretty well at. We sort of try and ensure that a minimum of 3 team members can do a particular task, function, whatever the case may be, so that if someone's on leave, if someone falls ill at the same time, there's still someone that can come in and do that task. Because I think that's really important. You need to sort of look at keeping the wheels turning. You can't just stop because, oh, well, sorry, maybe someone's been in a car accident. Like, you just don't know when things might happen. Life happens. Yeah. So we just need to be as prepared as we can be.
Cool. And then let's maybe go a little bit more granular then. How do we prioritize work? We obviously, the way that we work is we've got scheduled time for each one of our clients, and that's sort of like their micro department of an agency.
Yeah.
How do you then prioritize the work for our clients?
Okay, so we use 2 frameworks to prioritize client work. So the one is the SOI framework, which is simplify, optimize, innovate. We actually have our optimization strategists spending time on our client's website every single day. And during that time spent on the site, they will be looking for things on site. What can be simplified? What can be optimized? How do we innovate to improve this client's website? And they will raise all of those tasks on our PECD framework, which I'll talk about in a minute. So all of those things are raised onto our PECD so that they can be ranked and we can prioritize tasks. Now, our PECD framework is, I need to try and get the acronym right. So the proof or confidence that something has worked for someone else in the past, or something that we've implemented that saw good results. The ease to achieve a particular task, the cost associated with implementing that task, and that can be for apps, materials, whatever you need to sort of implement that thing. Then you've got time, which is the time it would take, potentially Blend, but also potentially the client. The client may need to go in and do something as well, and they don't have unlimited resources either. They've got team members, they've got roles and responsibilities. And then the last one is impact. So how long before we see the impact of that task? Yeah. So that is our rating scale, and all of our reporting. So every month we will look at the analytics for a client's website and for their marketing, and we'll have recommendations based on that data. We do everything data focused. We don't just sort of pull something out of the sky to work on it. And with all of those recommendations, we'll pull those into the PECD along with the SOI tasks that we've raised. And our strategists, our marketing strategist and our optimization strategist will go through every one of those tasks. They will rank them on the PECD scale out of 5, and that then gives us an overall score of, well, what is the highest priority? Before they can rank those tasks, though, what we do need from them is a brief. What needs to be done for this task? Yeah. Where does it need to be done? How does it need to be done? Once they've provided the brief, our project managers go in and provide a scope time for the task. So then, the strategists have a very clear idea of how long a task is going to take and what time investment is needed to achieve that task. And from there, they can go and rate on a PECD scale. Everything gets a score out of 100. We've got some fancy little formulas that we work with on our Monday boards, on our PECD Monday boards. And from there, we can then work highest priority to lowest priority and actually start booking those in for the client for the month ahead.
You ranking it, you've got your PECD recommendations, you've got one more moving part here, it's called the clients.
Yeah.
How are you getting the clients involved in this process now as well?
So at the end of our PECD ranking, we actually share a document with the client about our insights, why we have these recommendations, and what we deem to be the highest to lowest priority. But this is not a one-way street. This is, normally we would share that with the client in one of our bi-weekly calls, and we would go through the recommendations, just giving a bit more detail on the insight for this particular task. And something I didn't mention before is we actually have a hypothesis for each of the tasks. So if we do this thing, what do we expect to happen and how will we measure it? So it's all, very data driven.
When you say how do we measure it, what do you mean by that?
In terms of metrics. So Are we going to measure this in terms of average order value? Are we going to measure it by click-through rates? How are we going to measure this particular task?
Okay.
So we would compile a document for the client, and then we would talk through all of the recommendations. If there's something on that list that maybe the client is implementing internally, that one just gets removed. Or if there's something that they feel is a higher priority because perhaps there's some internal things that they are discussing that we aren't privy to, then we can adjust the priority stack. So it's, it is a two-way street with the client.
So I'm imagining that, yes, it's a monthly meeting that you're going to have this with the client, but there's going to be things in the PACT months in advance that everybody's going to be aware of that are coming up in higher priority. Mm-hmm. Is that the case?
So we reprioritize every month.
Okay.
So although, say for example, we are working on July's PACT, we might have 100 things within that PACT.
Yeah.
We can't do 100 things in July. So we will prioritize that and we will book those tasks in for July. But now at the end of July, we've done additional reporting. We have additional recommendations. So all of those recommendations are then pulled into the PACT. They are ranked, and we look at how those priorities now fall. So something that was maybe your highest priority last month, it's been bumped out because there's something else that's really urgent that we need to do. So it all just goes on prioritization each month.
Okay, so you sort of reevaluating what that main priority is for the next month as well, in order to pull your priority. So let's, rough case here, our priority for May and June was increase conversion rates, and we achieved it, we smashed it. But in July, we still had recommendations for further increases to conversion rates. You're saying what we would do is we actually maybe realised at that point average order value might be better now. Are you saying we'd then pull up average order value tasks above conversion rate?
It's a very interesting question.
I know that's very hypothetical because...
And it could be no, but it would all come down to how that's rated in the PACT out of 5. So your P, your E, your C, your T, and your I.
Yeah.
So we would have the strategists rank those. So it could well be that average order comes above conversion rate, but potentially that particular task, although we're going to measure it with conversion rate, it may be more urgent because of something else within that task.
Okay, so it's not as simple as just looking at which of the levers.
Yeah.
It's also looking at how easy that task is to implement as well.
Unfortunately, it's not that easy. Exactly.
Fantastic. Okay, well, thanks so much for sharing, Kel. That's it's nice insights to what goes through your brain every day.
Happy to help.